Okay. It takes money, government, and industry, but more importantly, it requires that society internalize space into its belief system and its cultural makeup. Unfortunately, I don't know what it is referring to.
Space architecture. I think that's a statement of political will. That's definitely.
It's the why.
Yeah, it's a why.
Okay.
Next one. As a left-handed pilot who must fly in right-handed cockpits, I've come to appreciate well-designed control systems and the need for cockpit management. I think it has made me realize that architecture must be flexible, giving the user the ability to change and adjust their environment.
Yeah.
You read it again. Just read it again.
As a left-handed pilot who must fly in right-handed cockpits, I've come to appreciate well-designed control systems and the need for cockpit management. I think it has made me realize that architecture must be flexible, giving the user the ability to change and adjust their environment.
It's a skill. It's a skill like that.
Yeah. To really demonstrate my illustrative skills, I should pull it up until deeper.
Yeah.
Sat across the room.
I think somebody's looked out.
Oh, Kurt, go away.
Sorry.
No, you can't come back.
No paper, no podium.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
Is that our last one?
No, I have one.
Well, yeah, and I
What?
have one, and Sircon, well, we,
I have one.
oh, David knows.
All right, so who goes next?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
Take you.
All right, I'll just go over the here.
Interdisciplinary period, teamwork period. Architect as first coordinator, least biased, the expert generalist.
Skills?
So number one, don't you think?
Yeah.
Lots of periods.
They ought to be able to hold their own in a conversation with mission planners.
Skills.
A scientist discovers what exists, a designer creates what it never was. I'm not sure what the it is.
I think we're talking about
Probably a typo.
English as a foreign language. Italians put articles everywhere, you have to have an extra article. So let's just get rid of what never was. A designer creates what never was. I don't know if it's really a fundamental skill set, but it's probably what it's meant to be.
I agree.
It's got a little of the GOD in it, but
Okay, that was painless.
always makes me uncomfortable when I read statements like that, you know?
So,
Goody, running out of room.
Sircon, you're next.
Yep. First statement. A theoretical and conceptual approach to space projects, tackling topics of the architecture avant-garde, is as relevant for space architecture as it is for architecture. One has to reflect the social context we are living in, the context of the building site, as well as being critical about the own work.
Context, criticism, skills.
Skill.
Not much disagreement. Make that airplane and just run over. Thank you.
The next one is, what kind of curriculum would you propose as a good one for the training of our future colleagues? 3 phases. Phase 1, A foundation in topics such as history, philosophy, anthropology to give the perspective mentioned above. A foundation in freehand drawing, manual drafting with emphasis on mechanical drafting, descriptive geometry, and presentation. A foundation in color theory and painting with the option to specialize in watercolors, Prismacolors, or oil. Phase 2. Mathematics, particular emphasis of coordinate system transformations and matrix methods. Courses should be taken with engineering general population, not watered down math for architects. Link mathematical concepts to mechanical drafting concepts above. Basic computer graphics training, CAD system usage, as well as computer graphics techniques. Systems engineering courses, planetary geology. Phase 3. Basic orbital mechanics and mission design, advanced computer graphics and simulation techniques. System design and presentation, technical writing.
These people are all worn out by the time they're done.
Wow, this is unbelievable.
It's like then you take a job as a hairdresser.
Auto mechanic.
But it's definitely how.
That's a training.
Don't we want to create that curriculum which makes anybody, oh, I never want to be a space architect?
Since the competition for available resources is so high, it's not honest, but it's a good idea.
Add to that bongo lessons. Need that for
And musical theory,
Yes. Need the bongo so that you can accentuate
ballroom
the
dancing,
poetry readings.
to understand choreography.
You have to understand the natural
Is
oscillation
that both of
frequencies
yours?
of the bongo
Um,
membrane
David?
in various atmospheres.
No, I'm lost.
Rhythmic gyrations and atoms.
Unless you want to be the last one.
Okay.
The structure of
Very important is curiosity. This you need to see things, build spaces, architectural concepts, the laws of physics, etc. To investigate and to question them. Cross-thinking, amphibian thinking. Looking for inspiration and vision in other professional fields is as important as open-mindedness and curiosity. First of all, the attitude has to be there, then work can develop.
Well, so what?
Is that a skill? Curiosity? Yeah, probably.
Well, it's a quality.
Can you tell who wrote that one, Constance?
It's,
Who wrote that one? Do we know?
I think it was Barbara, if I remember right. Yeah. Yeah, I remember the amphibian.
What's that right there, Serkan?
You mean this one?
Are these more statements that haven't been
Yeah,
read?
3.
Oh. Yeah, give David one, give me a couple. And you take one for yourself. And share out the remains of the labor. Okay.
Okay, next one is space architecture and architecture should definitely not be separated. Space is part of us and therefore not to be separated. On the contrary, space architecture should be integrated more into the normal curriculum so that students learn more about technical aspects in physics, technology, etc. Architecture contains all environments, underwater, in the ice, in space, in the desert, and so on, and all environments should be tackled at a university. So that's number 4.
That's kind of,
Contribution to form, maybe?
it's meant to be 4. It's got a little bit of everything, but
We need more than 4.
yeah, 4 is pretty empty. It's a very unpopular category, so, all right.
For some.
4 is good.
The thing is that the area that gets the least attention is going to be the one that, is going to be the way things end up.
Okay, one more. Hands-on experience with and resulting openness to constructive interdisciplinary cooperation. Understanding and integrating the interests / knowledge / requirements of both the engineering and human sides of a space architecture project is crucial.
She made it. You guys must have sprinted.
2. Why don't you sit here?
Hands-on experience. What does everybody think? Or should we read it again?
Does it seem like good? Fundamental? Read it again,
Well,
please.
Hands-on experience with bracket and resulting openness to bracket closed. constructive interdisciplinary cooperation, understanding and integrating the interests / knowledge / requirements of both the engineering and human sides of a space architecture project is crucial.
Skills. Skills.
So
Yeah, it's sort of the skills.
it really is absolutely skills,
Complex.
I would say. Erica, you had an extra word you might.
The forces impinging on space structures, especially orbital, are significantly outside the scope of what terrestrial architects deal with. We have from the beginnings of aerospace architecture a practical and professional lineage distinct from terrestrial architecture. Are we attempting a shotgun wedding?
Number 4,
That's a Y. Is that a Y?
that's a definite one.
Shotgun wedding, that's what I mean.
That's picture. And then
I guess that leaves, I mean, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna let each of you have one of my statements anyhow, so that you get to read at least one. I just having to talk way too much anyway. So,
It's my turn now.
go, Smita.
Okay, it says history. Concepts of space habitation from Tsiolkovsky, von Braun, Obev, O'Neill, Zubrin, and many others, and of course our illustrious members. The good, the bad, and the ugly is in no particular order. So that's about the history. Where does that come in?
I think that's a skill and fundamental knowledge.
Fundamental.
That's a what?
not the curriculum, that training, or the history.
Not
It's not a
fundamental
how.
knowledge.
It's not a how, so it's a what we need.
So the context is very distinguished. Super.
An academic menu of requirements with a strong component in history, lots and lots of history and theory, taught by leading scholars in their field with compulsory reading of original sources. Vitruvius, Alberti, Palladio, Serlio, Ledoux, Etienne Boulay, Aber, I don't know that, Logier,
Habitologie.
Bureau, Frank Lloyd Wright, and Corbusier, and Lisitsky, Gropius, among others.
Sounds like architecture school.
Well, yeah, that's raising, that's pointing a question, basically. I guess the base of that is basic architecture education anyway, and we try to find
That's one of the
what
questions on the
is-
board.
what- yes, okay.
Yeah, but the keyword in there is compulsory.
Yeah, I like.
Because an awful lot of students go through architecture schools, especially today, and never look at anything except websites.
So they'll read about all this on a website. I mean,
No, they don't. I mean, when I was mentoring the Mars 2012 class at Berkeley, it was like this huge battle to ever get the students to go to the L word, take out the B word, and do the R word with it. You know. And when I told them, you know, back in the primeval period where, you know, where I went to school, you had mandatory reserved reading, and you had to reserve the book sometimes weeks in advance to get it for 2 hours, and everybody fought like hell to get it at midnight Saturday night, because then you could have it till 10 a.m. on Sunday.
And Hong Kong students won't.
You know, the answer was, the Berkeley answer was,
Really?
as if So, you know, if that's what's going on in one of the allegedly top architecture schools or universities in the US,
But this isn't, similar to architecture.
Yeah.
I know.
It's just an educational issue right now. It's the dumbing down of education. So.
I think they read, I mean, I experienced that they read a lot, and they also read original sources, but just other sources. I mean, it's really changing. It's really, you know, what we learned in the beginning, that's what I learned in the beginning of my architectural studies, and then in comparison to now, it has been a lot of changes in architecture as well as in the education, and in that sense, what they read and what they quote. And
right. Well, the observation that I made over working with that class for nearly 5 years was they just didn't read. I mean, they could occasionally read something really short, but
that is the how of it. I mean, because curriculum, I also remember we had lots of architecture history, everything was there, but majority of students were not really interested in that. They fell asleep in the lecture, or they just didn't know, why should I learn about Abbé Loger or whatever, or Palladio. It's not my interest, so it's how. So how you really teach it, how you get the students doing it, or how you get them to see why it's worth learning it.
yeah. Well, actually, when I was teaching at Michigan, this question came up, where in my my section, we were doing ancient architecture, and we were just starting the Greek orders, and the student asked, why should we have to learn this? Because it's over 2,000 years old. What possible relevance could it have? And I had to think about that a little. It was not an obvious answer, but I said, well, look, if you went to a doctor, you would really feel good if you knew that doctor had studied physiology and knew the names of the bones of the skeleton, you know. And I know I did when I broke a finger, and I knew that it was, you know, a metacarpal. The doctor knew it was a metacarpal. I was very sure the doctor knew that word. So if you're going to be an architect, you need to know the bones of architecture. You need to know the physiology of architecture, and that's what we're teaching here. And after that, I was able to really galvanize their interest, and I made them draw all the columns on the blackboard.
Okay, can we
the
reserve the rest of
selection-
this conversation until we finish this task,
Yeah, okay.
please? Thank you, because it's good stuff, but we can use up all of our time doing it and not achieve our restricted goal, so. Andreas, are you in the middle of assigning this to a?
Yeah, I don't know, it's an aspect, but I don't know if it's a fundamental, or should we take it, we had that one history.
Is that a how do we
should we
get there,
just,
kind of?
or should we put it to the history? I mean, we can still then vote if history is
It's a
that's
skill.
still a fundamental.
It's a skill, except there's also
yeah.
the compulsory reading thing is kind of a how. Kind of a curriculum element.
Yeah.
I mean, we could look then that the curriculum is maybe what emphasis on which skill are put. It's like 3 stars on that one, or 1 star only, or.
Well, certainly the compulsory, or just the reading list, compulsory or not, is the mechanics of how to acquire that knowledge and skills. And making it compulsory probably increases the likelihood that those knowledge or skills will be
Basic
transferred.
compulsory reading of the following people is pretty much of a curriculum item.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, that's, we
I
agree.
think we need more than just reading list, you know. It has to be something more than that. They take the information and, I don't know, present papers based on that, or sort of take the information, process it, you know. Just knowing doesn't make you think as much about.
Well, that's a how
these-
question.
That's a how.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
part of
I'm
the
late in this
curriculum.
game. so-
Yeah, that's cool. That's,
That's right.
plus there's just way too much stuff in number 1, so.
Reading
Why don't we
how
use-
it says if it
I mean, I
refers
think
to
an
real,
understanding
so-
of history is already sort
Yeah,
of part
okay.
of.
There's not enough stuff in number 1.
That's right.
Yeah.
Those are the comments we got. There's still more.
Yeah, what troubles me is there's a lot missing from this pile. I mean,
Yeah.
for example, Brent Sherwood says, fundamental aspects is everything architects are educated in and everything aerospace designers are educated in. That's a pretty big statement. You know, that's the total set of architecture plus the total set of aerospace engineering. And that needs to be represented here somehow. Maybe we should sort of start stacking these on top of each other so we can use the board to add in.
See if you can eliminate some of those, because
Are
after
there any
we,
duplicates?
yeah, after we
Are there
switch.
any-
I'd rather
over to
start by
knowledge
getting
skill.
everything on here that's on our list and then eliminate, or?
No, I'm just thinking,
Is
since
there any
we,
things that are similar or duplicative?
Education, architecture, plus. Good, Sigma,
Yeah.
Maybe that was the same person who wrote that curriculum that included watercolor and CAD.
Oh, I have the sheet, I have the last one of these sheets.
It sounded like
The basis of an
Looked at that being
architect's
done.
training is twofold. Thorough class, it's actually fourfold according, anyway, twofold plus two. A thorough classical training and preparation to be a fully qualified earth architect, as indicated by the milestones of professional degree and licensure. So, licensure. Knowledge, experience, insight to be a critical consumer of research about humans in space, structures, materials, astronautics, life support systems, and other relevant topics. It helps, but is not strictly required in all areas, that the space architect come into this ability as a critical consumer of research. That's in quotes, by the way. By performing research herself or himself. And so, maybe meaning scholarship, or the ability to do that as a skill. As a requirement for admission, okay, every student must read in a second language, and classes must have required readings in the original languages. Ideally, the class will be made up of people who read the major languages of architectural and human factors literature: Arabic, Chinese, English, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Russian, Spanish, Swedish. Huh? Danish. The students would do reserved readings in these languages and share what they read in multilingual and multicultural study groups.
Wow.
Now they're really tired.
That was space architecture.
It really would reduce the number of competitors or colleagues that we have.
Be
but
America,
it's-
they could speak English and Fortran, that would be a big advance.
That's actually true, that among the languages not listed here are software languages, computer languages. So, is that a number one or a number, I mean, there are references to how.
That's just as much two as the one that outlines the
Yeah.
specific readings.
Whatever you do with that
So-
compulsory reading thing seems,
Yeah.
you should do the same thing with this
whatever
one.
language it is, so it's emphasizing on reading, that was the history.
Thorough in
No, no, that one here.
Right down there.
Compulsory reading, so, okay, then we'll do that. All right, now, we're free to move into the stuff that didn't end up on these charts.
didn't we have a copy of the paper we wrote?
Yes, I have that.
No, just
I
keep it as that.
to your extended skills.
Yeah, I have that much screen too.
Yeah, I'm gonna run through this document then and see whether we think there's anything else missing.
I've got it here too.
Can I just, because we were late, just for the understanding, this is all of the questionnaire, the answers, or is it already selected, or what is it?
The idea was that all of the answers were compiled and then each of the sort of thesis statements, sort of thesis responses was put in a separate sheet of paper, but we may be missing half of the document or something because it looks like there's not as much on the
It
PowerPoint.
seems not very many, and been much more,
We had a few more, not vastly more responses than this. I mean, there's a lot here already. We did not have the kind of, the level of response that we might ideally have wanted, but it's a lot, you know. So, okay, we've got analysis, we've done, I don't see, general education. A general education at the bachelor's degree level in which one learns the rigors of different kinds of logic and thought. For example, philosophy, mathematics, sociology, literature, history, and most importantly, how to relate them to one another or when to deploy them to best advantage. Basically, a liberal arts education. Secondly, a professional degree in architecture and added training in engineering and natural sciences. And thirdly, at least 2 years experience in the field of architecture and construction management. That's what the reader considered a number one response. And I don't see, that's kind of a little bit more specific, or almost more of a how, maybe, in fact, than, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of gray area.
I've just noticed mine isn't here.
Yeah, well, we're just gonna have to make up the difference then, we'll just put it in.
But I did receive the answers.
You didn't get them?
I put all the answers.
I'm not, okay, so for whatever reason, just so, the question is, how do we make up for that now? What do we do next? What do we do?
We should
We're running out
try
of room.
to boil it down somehow.
Should we try to boil down the things we've already got and then add things that might be extra from?
But if we, since we have everything on there, what kind of document do we want?
First of all, everything isn't on here.
Well,
And
I
that's
mean-
what we're trying to figure out how to,
If we know what we're shooting for, then we know what else to put on there. And,
all of the responses we've received are not represented on here yet. We're not finished, but we don't have any more of these sheets of paper.
yeah, what are we producing?
What is the product
A
and its
document
purpose?
in which we agree, whatever it is that we can all agree, belongs in the, belongs in the set of fundamental knowledge or skills,
So is
in
it just- is it a
approaches
list- a
to
list
getting
of
there.
skills, similar to
Yeah.
what we did in the paper then, or? And then, so number one would be a list of skills, right?
Basic list of skills.
So maybe we can just start listing them off, just based on what we have here, and then add to it whatever, just go around.
Well, if you already have them written down
Well,
someplace.
Can I
Well, the
suggest
paper was a
something?
very, very specialized thing, that when, it was a survey that, it's very good, but it was so thorough that I, for one, as somebody who has taught space architecture before, just couldn't find the time to fill it out and participate, although I wanted to. The participants are, so it's very detailed, and it's really good stuff. But these are answers coming very hard and fast and dirty from a lot of people that don't have the same level of interest. So I was hoping to it was kind of like answering basic versions of the same, asking basic versions of the same question, out. And what I was proposing before, Scott, I don't think that you guys were here yet, to Andreas, was that the paper's findings kind of begin at a level of detail that sort of starts where this is sort of meant to leave off.
Oh, okay.
But maybe that would be a strategy to approach that first question, because, I mean, Scott, he listed up what would be the extension for aerospace architecture education opposed to another one, and that's what we've been discussing all this, is like the technology, no physics, no space architects, that we need to learn about thermal control, what is microgravity and all this. We could ask, is anybody opposing that? I mean, and then we could basically agree on the list of technology which you do have to learn.
It would be interesting if we had a matrix where you have traditional educations across the top, which include aerospace architecture, which include architecture, which include industrial design, which include marine whatever. And then you have the skills going down the side, and then you put X's in the spots that cover it, and then you know what you're missing.
Well, then there are lots of skills that have been listed already though that don't fit, that don't, specifically do not say traditional fields of education.
Yeah, and so that could be just down the side, and if none of the fields have any X's on it in that category, then we know that whoever is in that particular category needs to catch up on their own education in that way. You know what I mean?
Could you draw it?
Yeah. So you just have,
We have about 20 minutes scheduled.
They're not gonna be finished before 12:30.
Oh.
so,
But we have 31 minutes of videotape left.
No, we're good, their situation's
That's
a
a
little bit
design
different.
constraint, or?
No, their situation's a little bit different. They've gotta catch up some people at a certain time. So don't, if I say, go now, don't anybody else.
okay, so we have, we just have these three, you know, we can have as many fields as we want. And as many different education models. For each one of these, there's an education model that is typical or whatever. And then the skills, for instance, let's say ergonomics, or something in there. Okay, so architecture gets some, industrial design does, but maybe aerospace engineering doesn't. Okay, and then you have structures. Architecture does, aerospace engineering does, but industrial design doesn't. And of course, these are really big categories, so we can get really specific in all of these categories.
He's just
They do.
putting up the fast examples.
Okay, you're giving
Yeah.
me
Don't
that.
don't take this too
Yeah.
literally.
So, and that will tell, well, if I happen to be, if I'm a trained architect, then I know that, well, let me put one that architecture doesn't have.
Propulsion.
Yeah, propulsion, okay. This has it and the other two don't, okay, so I know that if I, no, that's literal, it's gotta be there, okay? And, so I know that I need to supplement my education by studying this somehow. This is a what, and since I've already picked these up in my schooling, then I need to pick this part up somehow. And that's how we'll figure out, well, how do these people pick these
Then we
lines
can
up?
also put out there on-the-job training, apprenticeship, and then under here will be skills like construction management.
Yeah.
Or.
So the things down the left are
Project
intended to be
management.
areas of expertise.
I like this.
And the things across the top are the educational or professional roles
And
that
over here,
should or
okay,
shouldn't
then
bring
we have,
those.
we have none. Somebody's just coming in and they haven't had any education at all. Where do they start?
Okay,
And,
let's see if we can
and
start this over
We can attack
here.
all of these, give them
Well, I thought the
educational
columns were
scenarios.
the curriculums that provided those
Right, that's.
skills, so instead of none,
It should be TO training and job
would be the-
Well, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking,
OJT.
if somebody's completely starting from the scratch and that's what they want to be an aerospace architect, then,
yeah, but
Well,
we
they
can
have to
it's
also.
the
they have to
opposite
pick
meaning.
something.
Yeah,
Well,
It's
they're
the
all
opposite
yeah.
meaning.
that's an inconsistent header.
Can I ask a question here? Is this a matrix that says, coming out the bottom is an aerospace architect, right? Now, coming out the bottom somehow is an aerospace architect.
Yes.
And we're saying that each one of these are pathways, a pathway that could be taken to get to aerospace architect. And then we're looking for the gaps that we have to fill in that we're putting under aerospace architecture
Yes.
as the skill
I think
set,
that's a good
the knowledge
description.
set.
You have to hit all of these things.
It
however this
identifies the
is.
gaps between the skills needed and the provider
This is
of
good,
those
I
skills
like
from an
this.
educational perspective.
And
If
then
there's a
switch-
row that doesn't have any X's in it, it means that's some aspect of aerospace architecture that's not being taught anywhere yet.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
And instead, that's what we were saying, instead of putting that last column isn't for people who haven't had any of these things, it's for the things that aren't taught by anybody.
Now,
That's
here's
the
another
opposite
possible
meaning. You
thing.
could put an X
We
there
wanna
if
make
nobody's teaching.
a
Here?
distinction
Yeah.
between the different levels of degree while we do that. So instead of one column for architecture, we could do bachelor's degree, bachelor's
Well-
and master's. Or should we agree,
Yeah, I would.
because in Europe, that's a very different designation than it is, sorry, in the United States.
Yeah, well, we could do those distinctions as well, but what I was thinking is the ones across the top could be educational models.
Yeah.
And that would include somebody who has never had any education at all.
Yeah, but is the X the thing I should study, or is it,
That's what
The thing
that educational model covers already. So it's.
Right, so
The X says where you
Blank here, that
where you
means-
could go to get the skill,
Well,
that's on the
that's what we
left.
do on number 2, is we figure out, well, for, how do we pick up this particular skill? And then we come up with different scenarios for how that skill is picked up by either self-study or by, with a supplement to each one of these programs, or a self-contained curriculum.
But the point of what you're building there captures skills versus educational models, or I guess.
Yeah.
And the way you would use that then is if you're interested in propulsion, you could sign up to be an aerospace engineer, or you might go learn on your own, or some on-the-job training, but
Well, I'm
from an
thinking-
educational
yeah.
model, aerospace would be the only one of those three that you have.
I'm thinking at the very least, a matrix like this would be it's a graphic thing that will show us where the gaps are.
Right.
And whether, what we do on step number 2, that comes later. So if we could just identify what these are, and how each, what these are and how much of these, what they cover. Because we have representatives from everybody here.
So if you want to relate that back to what you started with, the left-hand column should be number 1.
Correct.
The right hand, across the top horizontal
Yes.
should be training and where.
Yeah, right,
Number one
these are all number
feeds-
2s.
Right.
yeah.
creates this column.
Goes down. Number 1 goes down, number 2 goes across.
Yeah, now, number 3
Well, maybe
is
2
another
and
whole
3.
layer. Number 3 is another
Yeah,
whole layer, because
yes, number
in
3,
any of these
exactly,
architecture,
precisely.
how much architecture?
Yeah, that's where you get into
And different
bachelors and
layers,
masters and all that.
different layers of
kind stuff.
architecture degrees are gonna give you different amounts of each of the things, each of the same things, really.
So where we start off to identify gaps, a simple X over there will solve that problem. To address the part 3 thing, you might use something other than a simple X. You might use a
Three-dimensional matrix.
BS, MS, PhD,
Right, right.
certification, registry, whatever.
And actually, it's not, there isn't anything that's out there existing. Everything's custom made. Everybody so far has custom made their own ways to fill in those gaps, so.
Sounds
So-
to me
so
like
I
we're
would-
creating a master of the universe here. I mean, if you take and if you require all the skills, cross-disciplinary skills, and you're supposed to fill in all the boxes.
Prioritization is appropriate, I think. You should be able to say, okay, I've got strengths in this, I've met the core, these are areas of specialization.
There you go.
The core is required.
What's the core?
That's the compulsory. And those other
But,
ones, well,
but the other
that's.
ones, you should have at least a kind of fundamental, like architects know,
No, let's
they know
say,
statics,
you
but
gotta
they
have
don't
all the
necessarily.
stars. You gotta have all the stars and a certain number of X's above, on top of that,
Well,
and you come out here with the,
like when I first got into this, Mark gave me a list of things that I didn't even realize you had to consider. And just knowing about it is enough. Whether I know how to calculate it or know how to actually get in deep with it, that's another thing. So just having a knowledge of what's there, very shallow, I think is required for everything. And that's probably what this list ought to be. And then, how deep you want to go into each one, that will provide your specialty. And the specialty, of course, could be hanging on whether you've had this particular education or that one, or it could be that you've self-educated yourself in that, or whatever. So if we would need to come up with this list here, I think would be
I think you can draw that out of one thing. Start. That's great.
I don't think it's gonna fit on the board.
I don't think
Well,
we're going
let's
to do it
try.
in 15 minutes.
Let's
Yeah,
try.
right.
Let's see, do we think that a three-dimensional matrix, a fleshed out version of this, is gonna be enough to describe what we have there on the board plus the responses that weren't added up? In which case, I mean, that's the decision that's gonna conclude this session and determine what we do with the remaining 2/3 of the time that we have for this workshop.
I think you could probably
4 hours, I
represent
think
1,
we-
2, and 3 that way, but 4 is going to be some other sort of meta. It's going to be, 4 is going to be looking at this graph and saying, this is why we need.
Actually, the graph might tell you.
I think
Exactly.
I think we're gonna have to,
Graph
we're not gonna be able to use
itself.
chalkboards, we're gonna have to put it on a computer and put it up on the screen so that everybody can see it as we're editing it
Let's start it, I mean.
in real time.
We can do that tomorrow,
outlining it
yeah.
and,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
The three-dimensional graph. You wanna do-
Building it. The cubes.
Build it, use plastic.
But I think when you get the full list of skills you need, and you have got all your process wherever or whoever can fulfill those skills, you get number 3 answer from self. So, and then after that number 2, because you just check the curriculum from all universities.
subject matter expert.
No, I do not fully agree, because the number 3 is really also not just what, but the implementation of it. How do you teach it? By whom? Because many schools have many good curriculums, but the outcome is not necessarily as good. So
Yeah, you know, that's also something though that's kind of, I would almost put that argument, I don't disagree with it, but I think it goes back to the level of detail that kind of may spring beyond where we're starting from.
I think-
Here's, let me just introduce this a little bit. A lot of people have looked at it, but we haven't said anything about it. This is my proposed z-axis or z-axis to that matrix, which is different levels of experience with any of these. And the levels I'm thinking of just off the top of my head would be autodidact or self, on-the-job training, a bachelor's level degree, a master's level degree, professional stature, i.e. licensure, or subject matter expert.
So
So
the
is
intent
that-
of yours, that's
How
from like
much?
least to best?
Let's
That's a
say
progression?
I've got
Self
this,
to-
I've got this X and I've got this X, but for this X, I really just have a BA equivalent and some OJT, right? Whereas for on-the-job training. Whereas for, you know, for this X, I have a professional training equivalent, professional level of expertise, right? So in a three-dimensional
I think
matrix.
it's getting ahead of this, to be honest. That's starting to.
It's number 3. This is
Yeah.
the number 3 level.
Yeah. Yep.
That addresses number 3. So we're starting, but number 1 and 2.
Number 2 is across the top. Number 1
Number
is
one.
down,
Number 1,
goes down.
number
the
1
side.
is our y-axis, right?
Yeah, just to flesh that out with an example for the structures, as a bachelor's student in architecture, you get statics, but you're probably not getting into any dynamics at all. But as a master's student in architecture, you might get some dynamics. Whereas in aerospace, you'd probably get that as a bachelor's student. I'm guessing, I don't
Yeah.
know. So you could read across that structures row and you would say, to get this level of structural knowledge, if I take the aerospace route, I have to go this far, but if I
Right.
stick with an architectural program, you know, I have to take it to that next level.
I think just a good point to make with this, it isn't necessarily a ranking, what it is a depth.
Yeah, yes.
So
Absolutely.
it doesn't, it's not a hierarchy in any
Okay.
sense.
It's not meant to be a
Because you could
hierarchy.
actually jump
Okay.
all the way around here.
No, that's why I was trying to give the example. There
That's why I
are
asked
several
the
things
question.
up there which
I was hoping here
I'm
to
just down here.
Right.
And other areas where I'm up here, and I mean, I'm just saying that, you know, so, and it's, I don't think one's better than the other, it's just
Yeah,
certain
How,
amount
there's
of
not
how,
sort
coverage.
of a
how you
unique
would have
order.
found it, really?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
then you can't put it on an axis, because an axis
but it's in depth.
indicates, I know, but
Okay.
I don't agree with the axis because it
Well-
has direction. And
Right, the axis
Well-
implies an order.
yeah, I agree with what you just
The,
said, but
The z-axis, instead of being a coordinate axis, can be color-coded. Just use
anything.
different colors.
Susmita, could you
Then there's no one
explain your
Yeah,
your
I can explain
objection?
what I'm saying.
I'd like to hear Susmita explain her point.
See, the problem is we are, by putting it in that visual format, we're sending out the wrong message. I mean, we are here and we know what that means, but I think for someone who has not been here, doesn't understand why is it on an axis. An axis has direction, it's not just a, you know, a line. So I would,
What do you have against direction, and what is the
for
correct
example,
answer?
I can give an
Correct
example.
message.
Like when I say I was not here and I'm looking at it on the internet, and on-the-job training versus, let's say, a master's. If someone has worked at NASA Johnson Human Factors Division for 7 years versus not having a master's in architecture has far more, you know, like user
Agree,
understanding
absolutely,
of the whole thing. So to me, I would start scratching my head and think, why is I'm saying OJ or whatever that is.
OJT.
Well, you
Yes.
know, what you can do is you can
Two
split up
steps.
today and have, like Susmita and anybody else is interested, think about another model for how this.
Yeah, maybe another
The simple answer
representational
is
model, but
we don't,
yeah.
I agree, we
Well,
don't
the
need the third
suggestion-
axis, use
That's a
color.
good point.
Or that's the
Just
suggestion
use
Ted
color,
made.
it's a
No.
flat graph with color.
I believe that I
That's fine,
heard
yeah.
Ted's response to that is the same,
That's
which is
fine.
we agree with you,
Easier
we
to
see the
model.
point, and yet the distinctions do need to sort of be
Yes.
made in terms of how you get there.
Well, let me
And,
finish, sorry.
no, it's, if we just assign each of these a color in which the marks are placed on the two-dimensional grid, then it's better.
Color is a good way of doing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But do you, this, perhaps that's a question to base, perhaps there are people out there who do not fulfill any of those, yeah, they are not, they don't have a master or whatever, but they are good enough to fulfill all, or have all skills to become an architecture. And
How did they get those skills?
Yeah, but
Did God give it to them?
can you judge anybody by having a degree or not? That's the point.
This is
That's
self-taught.
why
This says self-taught.
Okay.
This says, I learned it on the job.
I think it's pretty
But doesn't it make more sense?
The idea is to include any possible way of acquiring that skill or knowledge.
genetic.
But
You
you
know
have
what
to
this
acquire
does?
them somehow.
If we use color, what that cuts out is if we're gonna have depth. So if, as you're talking about it, if I'm a
Good point.
specialist in
Good
one
point.
particular
I
thing.
agree, yeah.
And so do we need
We need to figure out a representational model which works.
Fourth
for
axis.
Let's leave that, because you know, there's enough with 1 and 2 that may
We-
come out of this
We
process.
do, yeah, we do.
I don't know if
We have
we
one
have
and two.
agreement
We
on
have a
how
lot of
that
work to do.
actually-
Color itself has
How about
3 dimensions.
experience versus education, there are how
You
about
can play with the
experience versus
saturation,
education,
you
you know,
can
there are
play
two
with the
different things there.
lightness.
I agree. We have 10 more minutes formally, and as much as 40 more minutes with an extension. And let me ask if you would agree that my goal then for wrapping up this session, let's say within the next 40 minutes, would be if we can agree on a two-dimensional axis just based on what we have already. If we can take that and the knowledge that we need to come up with a way of representing 3 and maybe 4 to the next session, is that good?
Good.
Can we try to focus on that? Okay.
And let's, for the next session, let's make sure that we have a video projector. Can we rent one of those or get the
Like an
copies?
LCD
Are we gonna be in that Cypress room?
We're gonna,
Yeah.
Session?
Yes,
no,
we
we're gonna be in
pro-
Mackenzie. We're
Well,
gonna be in the
anyway, one of
Mackenzie
those
room
rooms,
over
let's
there.
If they can just
Evening,
leave
So
it
we'll have a
projector.
projector.
Should have a projector.
It's $400 here to rent it, so.
Yeah, it's not worth it here, but over there should already be one, so.
Yeah.
let's
But
just
will
check.
they be removing it from the room before?
We have to check.
Well, you know, feel free to follow up on that with Susie.
Okay, who's gonna take the action? Somebody
Maybe on Thursday.
take the action.
Do you wanna take that one, Scott, or do you want somebody else to check that? Andreas, would you check on that with whoever?
Yeah, I
Who
can
gave
do
you that
that.
permission? Was it Susie?
One of the ladies at the reception desk there.
So-
Karen, I think. She
Right
was her
now-
Who
name,
supplies that stuff, the hotel or the SAE? The hotel
I
provider?
guess.
It's part of the package.
They
that
rent
say
it,
pays for.
yeah.
Talk to the conference
So-
coordinators and let them figure it out.
Yeah.
So right now, you want a way to take this away with you, correct? So we shouldn't be doing this in the blackboard.
Yeah, so
That's what-
I can
Well,
take a
let's-
picture.
the list is gonna be very
Okay, that's fine.
You know,
extensive. and
let me
Or
suggest that we do it on
somebody
the
types it up.
blackboard and have somebody typing it up at the same time so that we can take it away with us. But on the blackboard, we can all work
I
with
can
it.
type that because I've got to leave presentations.
Okay,
And whoever else needs to
We
do.
can just digital picture,
well,
and it's all there.
Yeah, we
That's
do
true.
that a lot, take snapshots of anything
Yeah.
that's big. It works.
it's always a good idea.
It works. Some
Yeah.
record of what we discussed.
Big run. I don't know, have you checked what room they're in?
Andreas?
It's the EVA session.
How are you guys going over there?
Pardon me?
It's on the way.
This has
Check
been
what
paid
room
yet?
they're in.
I've paid it.
You paid it?
Yeah, they know about us.
We have
No, because I have a car, so we'll
Oh.
Are we done here?
Is this after?
I don't know.
Constance,
Looks
Constance,
like-
are we done?
No. What we need to do in order to get done is to fill
That
out
one.
this matrix right
There's
here,
some of us,
based on
I think,
what's over there.
Boy,
That's right.
presentation.
I
40
think-
more
Start,
minutes.
is that- what
Let's
time
get
is
to
it?
work.
Time check,
40
please.
more minutes?
40 more minutes.
A
We
good
have this
start
one
is
till
that
12:30.
there's a list and then
That
you
10
have to.
Okay, I have more tapes. I
Yeah,
have plenty
I
of
would
tapes.
assume like that. So what time is it now? How much longer do we have to?
5 till 12.
12, okay.
So we have 35 more minutes.
And the session starts at 1:30?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of people would like to leave now. I just don't feel that we're ready to walk out of this room yet.
How about another 15 minutes? Because
see
we
how
all
much-
need to go, but at least 10
I
to
agree.
15 minutes. That's-
Let's see how much more we can get done.
Yeah, okay.
And people who have to leave now, you know, certainly have the first right to look at what we bring to the next session and go, you know, if they don't agree.
Why don't we start taking these down from up there and translating the content?
There we go.
Constance,
Well,
could
just
I?
if you can read it, if you
Sure.
can read over there what you think is the content, I'll write it down.
Over there.
Constance, could I suggest a kind of a strategy, which is that there are really two separate paths or streams that we have to consider. One is the academic training track, the other is the vocational experience track. And in both tracks, there's a kind of a low-level recognition of the other track. That is to say that if you work in my division at NASA Ames, all you need to work there is a bachelor's degree. They don't care how many master's degrees, how many PhDs you have. It doesn't get you butkus. It doesn't get you anything. It's all that matters is experience and project contributions. In the academic world, your so-called on-the-job training does even less for you, you know, as a professional, by and large. And so they're completely separate things. And
Your point?
my point is that I would be inclined to work on I would volunteer to work on the experience track, and maybe we could have an experience track group and a academic track group, and because there's really two separate lines like that. There is an academic line axis, and there's a completely separate experience axis.
I would argue in violent disagreement with that.
Oh, goody.
That what you're describing is maybe true, but it's dysfunctional. And
That sounds like me.
Trying to establish, or any of us probably, but that our goal is to establish a goal. You know, is to establish a set of standards that we think, you know, ought to be reached toward in terms of forming a baseline. And certainly, it seems as if most of the responses that we get in the how do we get there involve an assumption of a certain degree of both.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
And
Constance.
so-
Let me complete the thought, which is that once we have these two tracks or axes developed, we then try to correlate them and see how the different levels may correspond in some fashion. Which is, you may recall at the symposium in Houston last year, I was working on the academic side, and in terms of NASA position, occupational specialty descriptions, I was working on that end of it, but that's an extremely narrow window, a very narrow focus, you know, because it doesn't take the larger world into consideration. Because I think that
Okay, you know what I think this is? This discussion is a number 3 level discussion, which we're hoping to address in the afternoon session on Thursday.
Okay.
So, so you're in charge of bringing that back up on Thursday.
Okay.
Does anybody need a ride over?
You're doing that one?
Presentation,
They all have their
Okay.
Roll.
Sue, what do I put on the y-axis for number 1?
It's stupid when everybody.
Physics.
Physics, good start.
physics.
Sociology, social context.
Sociology.
Social studies I'll put, because it
Yeah,
includes.
social studies. How about biology, physiology?
Okay, there's
Oh,
We're just reading.
We're going through
okay.
these lists here
We're reading what's
first.
there.
Okay, we have this issue about starting in children's dreams. I'm not sure where that.
That might be under, that might be get moved down to the how.
Okay, hands-on experience with constructive interdisciplinary cooperation. Understanding, integrating interest, knowledge, requirement of both the engineering and human sides of space architecture. This is a how.
Well,
I think we
you know,
should
one of the
do
things
that.
that I,
That's on the job training.
Okay, so
Almost.
leave that one for now. Okay, that's not a content. I'm not going to talk about that one yet. Hold on, we'll come back to it, okay? So this one's a not yet, this one's not yet. Curiosity, laws of physics.
You know what, I am gonna put teamwork experience. That, I think
Okay.
that is a quality.
Okay, cross-thinking, amphibian thinking.
Well, I think how we could call that, I think an important aspect is to learn how to act in complex systems, how
You know
to
what?
deal with complex systems. That's maybe a bit
You know what that's
That's
called in an
systems design.
old-fashioned place like where I went to school is philosophy.
Okay. Philosophy.
Different ways of
systems
thinking.
design. Okay, philosophy.
Yes, I think so,
Yeah,
yes,
put it there.
absolutely. Philosophy should be there.
Which also goes to talk here about open-mindedness, curiosity, cross-thinking.
That's it, that's what
Okay.
cross-thinking is.
art. Hold on, we're just going down the list here.
That's
Let's,
good.
no,
Okay.
let's stick
Well,
with the
We
plan.
agree,
Okay, we have
but
Go.
let's finish what we've got
Go.
here and then.
History, we have specific
History.
space history here, actually. This is very specific to space history, it's not history in general. Okay?
Okay, I'm gonna put history anyway though, and then I'll put aerospace
Okay.
history.
Sure.
I think it should be both architectural and space history.
Common sense, creative design, and technical based knowledge. Common sense, creative design, and technical based knowledge. Not sure how we categorize that yet.
I'm sorry, I'm still dealing with the history. Can we back up? Planetary knowledge, is that what you said?
No.
Common sense, creative design, and technical based knowledge. That one's kind of not specific right now.
Design.
I don't think we're going to start another videotape here.
It's probably more fitting.
Some would say common sense
Should I
is
make a
engineering,
stop?
but
It'll
Oh, nice
just let the
one.
tape run out. It'll stop itself.
Or I stop and we use the last minutes if for somehow.
It's a tough one to put on It's not really something you
I think we should
require, no
probably
matter
sum
what
up
you
at the
do.
beginning of the next one, because there won't be anybody here to hear the sum up.
Okay, next one. These ones I've kind of left a little bit off. Gravity, atmospheric, natural illumination, child, gamut of colors.
Huh.
This is specific to space environment.
I think light and color and
So,
materials and all that
astronomy,
stuff.
Optics, acoustics.
Oh, external environment, space external environment?
What is constant house technique,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
we call that HVAC, or mechanical engineering.
that's internal environment.
Thermal
This is
engineering, actually, it's
external.
thermal engineering.
This is
Yeah.
external.
Yeah, that's environments.
So environmental studies, but what environment?
Well, environments, it's interesting because if you're focused in aerospace, environments means out there environments. And if you're not focused in
Weightlessness,
aerospace, it
vacuum,
means here,
radiation.
both interior and exterior.
Yeah,
So
orbital and extraterrestrial maybe.
I think all of the above are important though,
Yeah.
so.
That's true.
This one here, I'd almost say.
Wait, let me get thermal. Thermal? Thermal.
Yeah, structure.
Oh, wait, hold on.
We're not getting.
Constance, you seem to be violating your own rules here.
No, they said it before, and
No.
they're going too
No,
fast.
no, you
She
said
did,
it.
she said house technique, right?
Yeah, thermal, and that's
House
there,
technique is
because
thermal
that's an
engineering.
indication, you know, of the atmospheric
Doesn't that come under
pressure and
environments?
illumination, it's all
not
under
part
the
of environments.
thermal.
For us it is, for aerospace it's not.
I'm not arguing with you, but that wasn't, the plan was to just try to capture what was written on these pieces of paper.
Well,
And then we can add to that once,
See, the thing is thermal, propulsion, power, all that comes under, these are different engineering systems.
Yeah, but it comes from, I mean,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it comes
when I
from
read
there, then
this,
it's
and I have
valid.
to make sense of this. from
Okay.
that.
But we're inferring from this because from the bottom here, we have recruited debriefs, talk to astronauts, cosmonauts, innate curiosity, and then this talks about maybe psychology and how to conduct surveys and how to, do
Psychology.
right?
social studies.
I mean, effective communications
Social
is a
sciences.
skill that we're gonna
yeah, I'll
have
put
to deal
social
with.
sciences. That's what it is.
What's the
I think
difference
we
between
should-
social studies and social sciences?
Well, some would say it's big and some would say it's non-existent.
Which one?
Yeah,
Social sciences is,
big as a qualitative answer, how about a quantitative answer?
that's exactly it.
Which is a
That's
three-dimensional.
more qualitative.
Yeah, but that's not being fair to social
Four
science.
My
levels.
university, architecture is in the faculty of social science.
Okay, let's move forward. What
Okay.
else?
Next,
We have this one here, which is about this left-handed cockpit, which I would say is about ergonomics.
Yeah.
okay, put it down.
Yeah, that can be
Put it
fun.
down.
Aerospace, firmness, commodity, delight.
Delight.
Pleasure.
Firmness is structures.
Aesthetics?
How about manufacturing?
Commodity is usability.
Or
Economy.
building and manufacturing.
We're actually talking about human factors
Integration.
now. Human factors.
How is that different? Just, this is a question, I actually don't know the answer to this.
That'd be another one of those huge
Human
or
factors.
Well,
not
let
at all.
me I haven't asked the question yet, so no. What is the difference that you think is between ergonomics and human factors?
Human factors is a general area of, professional area that encompasses psychology, anthropometry.
Okay.
It's, ergonomics is
It's
a
a
lot more
subset.
technical, it's a
Please,
subset.
please.
Actually, the American Psychological Association has recently grouped human factors with ergonomics as the same discipline. And the journal is now called Human
It's not
Factors
my
and
area of
Ergonomics.
expertise,
I'm
so
sure
in my
some
limited,
people it means
I
the
would
same
put them
thing.
together.
Yes.
Please.
No, it's cool, I mean, it's.
Okay, I
it's-
just,
So,
that
do we
was
have
for my own personal education.
structures?
Where's the one that's